rebellion, correcting our mistakes, training us to live God's way. Through the Word, we are put together and shaped up for the tasks God has for us. 2 Timothy 3 verses 1 to 17 from the Message. A contemporary rendering of the Bible from the original languages by Eugene Peterson. Be sure to join me next time when the Apostle Paul warns about a diet of spiritual junk food. Have a good afternoon.
Oasis is aired here weekdays at 12:55 p.m. and is a production of Open Door Communications.
The Office of the Information Commissioner, OIC, is Jamaica's data protection regulator. We're here to ensure large and small, public and private data controllers comply with the Data Protection Act. All data controllers must register with the OIC and process personal data in accordance with the law. Help us create a data-safe society for all. For more information, call us at 876-929-6952. Visit our website at oic.gov.jm. The OIC, your data, your rights protected.
Get your packages in Jamaica within 48 hours when you ship with Postage Logistics Group. Call them at 876-846-5541 and sign up at www.postagelogistics.com. The time by Postage Logistics Group is
1 o'clock.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, the people demand. Right to life and security. Oh, what a joy. Oh, what a peace. How great this country could be. Respecting your rights. Respecting human rights.
Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Let's Start Justice. It's our second week here on Nationwide 90 FM. My name is Michael Jackson.
And I'm Jade Williams.
All right, so we are grateful for those who are listening on Radioland and as well as the YouTubers on the Nationwide platform and those who are also joining us on the JFJ's YouTube platform. Thank you so much, and we hope that you continue to listen to us as we break down the human rights issues that are facing the country and shed some light on some other items that would have arisen during the course of the week.
Yes.
Feeling good, Jade?
I'm feeling all right.
All right. So today we're going to be discussing the topic of fake news. And we've heard that announcement from the Prime Minister and subsequent statements from the Information Minister, Dr. Dana Dixon. And we're going to be joined by Chuck Cameron, who is an attorney at law. As we should have been joined by the head of RJR News, Milton Walker. But unfortunately, given what is happening with the storm, Beryl.
Yes, Beryl.
Then he has to be at a media conference that is held by the Office of the Prime Minister. But we will see how best we can share some of the concerns that we have heard in the media space and what we assume some of the media practitioners and journalists would have some concerns about. All right? But before we get into that, I'm not sure if we've been paying attention to the matter involving that court case involving Adidja Palmer. You call him Vibes Cartel. Sean Campbell, Kahira Jones, and Andre St. John. There was a news item carried by the Jamaica Gleaner, I believe yesterday or today, one of the two. And it says $36 million British bill. Mm-hmm. And that is the cost that the government of Jamaica has paid based on information received from the Jamaica Gleaner, from the compensation unit, this is what the government of Jamaica has paid to the lawyers in England to have the matter heard before the Privy Council. $36 million. It doesn't stop there, because the very article would have made a reference to the fact that when you compute all of the other associated costs, for example, accommodation for the attorneys here, the flight cost for people to have traveled, the attorney fees for those who are representing the defense, and remember how many of them I said 4 earlier, and at least 2 attorneys per defendant or co-accused. And the article made mention that legal experts have indicated that the cost could exceed about 150 million Jamaican dollars. I want that to sink in, because when you are pro moving away from the Privy Council, cost is always a factor. And cost is a factor for the average Jamaican citizen. I certainly couldn't afford it. And I think sometimes people are of the view that only somehow some criminals alone will be going to the Privy Council. Rest assured that you do have civil matters who reach all the way there. And any of us could find ourselves in contact with the criminal justice system. And if you're challenging a particular view, I want you to think on it. Is that cost out of your reach? And the impact, outcome, the consequence of such prohibitive cost is that you do not have an opportunity to develop your jurisprudence. And we operate in a common law system. And Jay, just for the purpose of the listeners as the attorney, what exactly does that mean for our jurisprudence being developed?
Well, in our common law system, each case helps to inform decisions that are made in later similar cases. And when we rely on the Privy Council to respond to our cases, and I mean outside of even the access issue, we've seen several judgments where there would have been several points in issue, points up for discussion for appeal, and the Privy Council responded to a minimal amount of those points, or a single point on which they would have been able to give a final decision on the appeal. So even in that case with Adidja Palmer and his co-accused, they brought 3 grounds of appeal, 2 of which would have been important for us to understand, chain of custody of evidence, or that might have an influence on how those matters are treated. And then the Privy Council would have looked at the point to do with the tampering of the jury, and decided that this was already significant enough to warrant an appeal. So we are not going to spend our time, and therefore the time of the people who would have paid all of these expenses and all of this trouble to get here, to go through all of these other grounds. We're just going to go through this single ground as it's sufficient. And this means that there are no unanswered questions in our jurisprudence about how these other 2 grounds should have been handled. So I think that, while access is certainly an issue, there is also what that access results in, or that lack of access results in, which is a kind of, and I don't want to say rushed, but, and not a fully considered decision in terms of all of the grounds that are usually presented.
19-page judgment.
Yes, a 19-page judgment.
Only 19 pages.
Yes.
Ruling on just a single matter.
Yes.
So that means that the rest of us who, or our system would not benefit from having the matter of whether or not, I think, a phone call was made with one of the phones and that type of evidence issue. So the point is that if we were to move to a Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, the question that one must ask, would the cost be similar? And I can preemptively answer absolutely not. And would we have benefited from improved, stronger jurisprudence? And while in the long term I may support a final court here in Jamaica, you can speak to attorneys to ask them whether or not we're even close ready for that particular dream if you will.
Well, we certainly
right?
have a ways to go.
Far ways to go.
Yes.
For example, even getting transcripts so you can have an appeal heard in a timely manner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so that is it for the week that was, and we're going to be touching on another issue towards the last 15 minutes of the program, focusing on Mario Dean, a 31-year-old who had died while in police custody, and we're going to be giving you some update regarding that particular issue. Heartbreaking. Justice continues to be denied and delayed. Based on what the family is going through and the accused as well. But we will touch on that briefly. So let's get into the program.
Yes, so I do have a right of the day for our listeners today. It's coming from our Constitution, Section 13(3)(c) and D, which speaks to our right to freedom of expression and our right to seek, receive, distribute, or disseminate information, opinions, and ideas through any media. And this is essentially what we call freedom of speech here in Jamaica. And this provision allows us to, as it rightfully says, give information, get information, and speak our opinions through any medium.
Yeah? It's your constitutional right.
Constitutional right.
Correct.
We also have a trivia question for today, and the first correct response will receive a $500 credit from a network of your choice. The question for today is, what act abolished criminal libel in Jamaica? So we have a piece of legislation that speaks to the abolishment of criminal libel and puts in place some other provisions to protect from what would have been criminal libel. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that going into the show. But the first correct answer for the trivia question wins. It will be on our Instagram pages, and you can also respond in the YouTube chat on Nationwide.
Yeah, and when you respond, if you respond via the YouTube chat and you win, you can just text your number to 239. What's the rest of the
7583. So, and that's our WhatsApp number as well.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the program now. Fake news responding to misinformation and disinformation. Now, we've heard the statements from the Prime Minister on June 22, 2024, where the Most Honorable Andrew Holness indicated that his government will be cracking down on fake news, and he was speaking at a JLP youth conference in St. Anne. The Prime Minister went on to discuss a case where a young person posted potentially defamatory content on social media, resulting in the government tracking down and identifying the individual behind the post. That particular bit of information caused some issues there.
Yes,
but this aspect raised several concerns regarding the potential breaches of privacy.
These concerns are similar to concerns that came out late last year in December, when there was an announcement by discussion by the Prime Minister and by the then Information Minister Robert Morgan regarding the implementation of a hate speech law.
And we take a clip from,
The idea of a hate speech law is based on the reality in Jamaica that there are many actors within the society who seek to incite violence against other members of the society using certain language. Gang members, persons who have interest in undermining the state.
Was Robert Morgan. He was Information Minister at the time, now Minister of Works. Now, when that particular statement was made, JFJ actually issued some caution regarding the proposed hate speech. And we stressed that one needs to be careful so that there is a distinction to avoid reintroducing criminal libel or sedition laws, highlighting concerns that conflating hate speech with sedition could stifle legitimate concerns or criticisms of the government, and similar concerns have been raised with this particular proposal coming from the government.
Now, at a recent JLP party meeting, the Minister of Information, current Minister of Information, Dr. Dana Dixon, responded to some of these concerns, concerns about this proposed legislative course.
We are very much supportive, and we have always been, as a party, the right to say what you want to say. But what we are saying is that you must say things that are true. And when you say things that are false, and you know it's false, and you spread it, there has to be consequences for that. Of course you can cuss us. We can take it, because we know we're doing a good job. And usually the cussing just means we know you can do even more because you're so good already. So we are right with the cussing. What we want, though, is for the conversation to be based on truth.
All right, that was Dr. Dana Dixon, and I think the question that we have raised here at JFJ, given that you have defamatory laws, or defamation laws rather, you have Cybercrime Act, you have the Data Protection Act, the question is, do we need a new piece of legislation, or do we focus on other non-legislative means to really address the issue of fake news, misinformation, disinformation? We're going to be joined by Mr. Chuck Cameron, attorney at law, but we take the break.
Is your strata filing its annual returns? In keeping with the Registration Strata Titles Act, strata corporations are required to submit an audited financial statement or a copy of its accounts, prepared in keeping with generally accepted accounting principles, signed by the chairman and at least one other member of the executive committee. This must be submitted annually to the Commission of Strata Corporations within 120 days after the end of the financial year. For more information, contact the Commission of Strata Corporations at 926-9748-9.
Need to make a change to your title or need a title? GeoLand Title Limited. They do lost title application, add and remove names from titles, wills, estates. First-time registration land surveys also included. Affordable rates and flexible payment options. NLA adjudication and land titling waivers also available. They have 8 locations island-wide. Call 876-754-6436 or visit their website at geolandonline.com. GeoLand Title Limited. Secure your land, secure your title.
Oh, every time I pay the rent, it feel like if money could have been better spent. I want something for my own. I want to turn the key in my own home. They make it so convenient when you contact the NHD. No matter your home ownership goal, you can get a loan easily. If owning a home is what you want to do, NHD is here for you. Delivering more. Delivering more.
Some men claim they're in love and loyal. They would drive from Negril to see a woman in Port Royal, not to get love and affection, but to face another night of rejection.
But she still come get in.
You know, that night we have to say, you thought just because you drove all this way, I'd give you hugs and kisses. We only been together 8 months.
Some men sell their soul to get a bottle of the honey and spend the very last of their money, even when they know the love of their life as another man.
What makes a man join a circus to play these tricks?
This Tuesday's topic, if she can play you left, right, up and down,
why not accept your
Affairs of the Heart is brought to you by Supermed Pharmacy. Super happy, super healthy, Supermed.
ABC Electrical Sales. We make things as easy as ABC.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We are discussing the matter of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. And as we're joined by attorney at law, Mr. Cameron, Chuck Cameron, we're going to be explaining, because I'm reading some of the comments in the YouTube chat, and I don't want there to be a misunderstanding of the position that JFJ has taken or the concerns of others, because certainly misinformation can be a dangerous issue. When you look, for example, at what was happening during COVID, at the last local government election, my child came to me and said, "Mommy, people actually think that the Prime Minister changed That type of misinformation, was there. The question we have to ask ourselves, what is the right response? What is the impact that we're seeing? I do believe that it's a threat to democracy personally, but even though it's a threat, I have to ask myself the question, if there was better civic knowledge, would some of this type of memes and videos and so on had the impact that we're fearful of? So we're going to be discussing that with Mr. Cameron. Mr. Cameron, are you here with us?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. How are you and your listeners?
We're doing well. Thank you so much. I'm here with Jade Williams, our policy and advocacy specialist.
Yes, please. Good afternoon.
So, Mr. Cameron, you're both an attorney and, can I say, someone who is very well an expert in privacy and cybercrime tech areas.
I own the expert moniker as it relates to data protection and privacy.
Okay, perfect. All right, so having heard the Prime Minister, having heard Dr. Dana Dixon, our Information Minister, what is your immediate response to the proposals and the area of mis- and disinformation?
So I am glad that the administration of the day is taking this issue seriously, as it should, because it is something that one could shy away from for fear of the political backlash in relation to clamping down on freedom of expression. We must accept the fact that we now live in an information age, a digital age, where broadcasting and publishing is now fully democratized. Everyone has now become a publisher, and everyone can have an equally loud voice. So we must be mindful of the ill effects that can impact on our democracy. So what I want to see is exactly this, the role that civil society, organizations such as yours, institutions such as the opposition, to ensure that the government doesn't cross the line, and if it does, we continue a conversation in court if necessary. But once we all agree that this is a threat to democracy, our administration must lead on this, and we have to exercise our voice on our various platforms and ensure that the government doesn't overreach. And it will be a challenging balancing act in no uncertain terms.
Yeah, if I may, Jade, I made a post on Twitter, and this is it, Mr. Cameron. While technology and social media may make information more readily accessible, I don't think misinformation or criticism of any government is anything new. For example, in 1972, Lascelles Tucker, this was a gentleman who, I think he was a JLP counselor, my apologies. And at that time in 1972, you had the Prime Minister then being Michael Manley. He distributed some publication, written publication, in supermarkets, in a little grocery shop, for example, saying that Joshua bringing communism here to Jamaica. Joshua is being a dictator. That was the essence of the publication that was shared. And when the matter went all the way to the appeal court, the grocery shopkeeper said, you know what, I didn't even pay it any mind. I just use it to wrap my saltfish in. The other person in the shop said, you know what, I didn't even pay attention to that. I just threw the pamphlets in my drawer. And somebody said I just found humor in it. So my point is, what is new, really, why we're making much ado about this particular issue?
So prior to now, you had a limited number of entities controlling the publication of information. So members of the public would have had access to the TV, members of the public would have had access to the newspaper, members of the public would have had access to other electronic media. So they have a what was could be viewed as sources of truth. Right now, the who watches TV today, when you're looking at our population, is social media our primary source of reference, because it is only persons in that limited space in that supermarket that could be reached. In this case, we don't have that source of truth. That is what is substantially different. There is no one source of truth that you can go to get information that you perceive to be true. All sources are now competing for attention.
So, understood. So where do we, how do we fit in, or for example, our defamation provisions into, whatever is being proposed? What would we be adding to provisions like, or defamation provisions, for this to have a farther reach? Or what exactly is the farther reach that we're hoping to see?
So my view is that our defamation laws are pretty robust, and they have had positive impact in the past, and we actively use our defamation laws. I'm suggesting that we may want to use it more. However, defamation doesn't address the new dangers that we are faced with in terms of misinformation, because misinformation is different from something that is not true, something that lowers an individual in the eyes of a public. We have remedies for those. What if there is something that is not true, that doesn't lower someone in the eyes of the public? Where is the relief there? Where is the redress there? So those are the things that we need to be mindful of.
Is it that we would be, or I guess I'm asking your opinion, is it that we would be seeking that redress in terms of something that's in the public interest, or is it just any public statement that could be considered misinformation?
So let's not limit it to statements. So yes, public interest is always what we need to consider when seeking to impose any sort of constraint on how we could restrain anyone's freedom of speech. So that is always a limiting factor. Let us look at the situation where you had this skit that was put out by someone in the opposition in relation to where they used the phone recording of of a minister that went public, and he gave the impression to the public that he was having a concurrent conversation with this minister. In that instance, he did not necessarily lower the estimation of the current minister in the eyes of the public. So defamation wouldn't be a law that is available to him. So if we focus so singularly on public statements, I think we ignore the fact that we're in the digital age where we can create things and present things that are not true.
But if I may, Mr. Cameron, and I want you to bear with me, the provisions of cybercrime, for example, where would that fit in? Because the question I would ask, freedom of expression does not limit itself to people speaking absolute truth, because we see nonsense all the time on social media, and one
lies too.
Exactly, that's the point. If you have freedom of expression, don't you have the right to tell as many lies as you feel like, as disdainful and distasteful as they may be, as long as it doesn't cause reputational harm, as long as it is not inciting violence, as long as you're not threatening someone? Where exactly do we draw the line, and who is the truth fact finder, so to speak?
Right. So it's not necessarily a question of what is a lie and what is truth. So you in those things that you identified, you didn't go further. What if things are said that threatens our democratic processes? That is where I want us to go. What if things are done and said that threaten our democratic processes, because where persons are fed information that is not accurate and not true, and that then influences how we exercise our vote, that threatens the integrity of our democratic processes. Let me give you an example. Some time ago, the Broadcasting Commission published broadcasting guidelines as it relates to political statements. It didn't deal with defamatory. It didn't deal with cybercrime. It just understood that if you are going to use a public airways to disseminate information, it must be accurate and it must be fair, because the government, through the Broadcasting Commission, understood the impact it could have. The challenge that we now have is that the Broadcasting Commissioner currently does not have the power to regulate individual broadcasters that use a social media to broadcast, but the same sort of controls that the government saw it fit to put in place to manage the public airways, because they understood the impact it could have. Even though we have the freedom to tell as many lies as we want, we can't get with the most we can do is get beaten. That's if I'm a parent or teacher.
Let's take a break, Mr. Cameron, and then we pick up, please.
Yes, please.
Every time I pay the rent, it feel like the money could have been better spent. I want something for my own. I want to turn the key in my own home. They make it so convenient when you contact the NHD. No matter your home ownership goal, you can get a loan easily. If owning a home is what you want to do, NHD is here for you. Delivering more. Delivering more.
At the Jamaica Customs Agency, we care for our employees, customers, stakeholders, citizens, and our country. Customs cares. The temperature by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
32 degrees Celsius in Kingston and 31 out west in Montego Bay.
Power in great moments. If you have financial needs, Chris and Charles will fix them for you. Power in great moments since 1992. Oh, we have it all. Power in great moments. Relax, you got Chris and Charles. Oh, we have it all. When you think low, think Chris and Charles.
presenting another finalist in the 2024 Jamaica Festival Song Competition.
Wagwan Jamaica, it's your boy Casey Donaldson. The title of my song is Sweet Jamaica.
Everybody want come down here for the food and for hear patois. Home of one love, number one in the world. We little but we talawa. Can't hungry, a sweet, sweet jam down. We have a roasted fruit and
Jamaica Festival 2024.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We are discussing responding to disinformation and misinformation, and we are joined by Mr. Chuck Cameron, attorney at law. Mr. Cameron, before the break, we were talking a little bit about where we need to be putting our minds. And as you were, discussing it, it brought back to mind the legislation that we have seen coming out of Singapore. I don't remember the exact name of it. I think Mikhail has it there. Do you, Mikhail?
So in 2019, Singapore would have passed a legislation called the Protection from Online Falsehood and Manipulation Act, or it took effect in October 2019 rather. And we have seen other misinformation laws coming from other countries. For example, in Australia, I think it was a bill, I'm not sure it became law as well as yet, misinformation and disinformation. And in Canada, we've seen where they have a piece of legislation called content moderation law.
We also saw one in France as well. I can't remember the exact name of that one either. But yes, and it's implemented.
But, you know, the one with Singapore, Mr. Cameron, the area that we flagged as an item of concern is that it permits a single government minister to declare that information posted online is false, and in order for the content's correction or removal, if deemed to be in the public interest, that is limited to a single government minister. I'm not sure if you've given thought to what a Jamaica similar legislation could look like, or if you're familiar with any of these particular legislation that I just made reference to.
So what I know in general, I don't naturally lean towards Singapore when you're looking at legislative models, because their concept of democracy is not consistent with our concept of democracy. So I'm not anxious to look at a Singapore as a legislative model. However, it does bring to mind that today we do have common law rights that you can exercise, such as malicious falsehood. So today we can go into our courts and say that although we suffered no harm, that was a malicious falsehood. But I want us to make a distinction between an individual suffering harm and an individual being the subject of a malicious falsehood, because that is not necessarily the only thing that is in issue when we're speaking about political discourse. It's just a misrepresentation of facts. And where there's a misrepresentation of facts and there's no human in the loop, that is where we need to pay specific attention. That is what we need to pay specific attention to. That is the problem that those laws that you reference speak to.
Yes.
So we have to think of the scenario where nothing has been said untrue about an individual, but they have warped or changed the perception or the accuracy or truth of the perception to the individual. So you, in the run-up to the program, you did ask, and I've heard you speak significantly on the alternative legislative mechanisms that are available. Well, outside of the law. And we do have to pay special attention to them, because very often we see where the government, where they have a specific initiative that they want to push, such as a NITS, for example. We had a PR campaign like no other. And when Minister Tufton is prepared to put his energy behind a PR program, we see where they are very effective. We do not need to seriously take this on as a national, if it is a national threat, where we are considering in restricting persons' freedom of speech. That's how serious it is. It justifies and necessitates that the government put equal amount of energy into awareness, education, and these alternative sources of information. Because if it is, they go down the road, implement legislation to correct this wrong, the question that the court will ask is, have you tried all alternative methods before you seek to restrict the rights of Jamaican citizens? So if it is, if the government wants to, in a credible and sustainable way, they have to spend a lot of resources to ensure that they would have put everything in place to minimize this risk that we all agree exists.
Because, thank you so much, Mr. Cameron, because that is my concern. Should we be moving towards a legislative route at this point? Because I personally, and I speak for JFJ in this regard here, I don't think we've seen the type of machinery starting to have the engines roar to the degree that we can say that the Jamaica Information Service, the PBC, and all of these other state agencies that are there to share information. I think at one point we heard from the former information minister that the government has secured the rights to a broadband for radio. So I am not sure if we've done all that is necessary to be educating the population, because there are some things that I see on social media and I can quickly dismiss it and say this is nonsense because one is informed. I don't mean formal education, no, informed because you're tuned into PBC. But as you use the NIDS example, Mr. Cameron, you can remember that there were others who said that the first iteration of NIDS was problematic. It would have breached several of our privacy rights. Because my fear again is this: when we use a NIDS in the first iteration, can you imagine if we had a misinformation law, what assurance would we have that it won't be misused and exploited by any government of the day? I think that is the tricky part that I think we have to contend with.
So let us look closer at NIDS. The government, through our judiciary, has a very clear roadmap as what has to happen before we can seek to restrict anyone's constitutional rights, even when there's a legitimate reason to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And what NID said, what our constitutional court said is, show me the empirical data that this is a problem. That's the first thing. Don't tell me what you feel. Don't tell me what you think. Show me that this solution that you're putting in, there's empirical data to say that it can address the problem. First thing, what they're also required to say is that they must demonstrate that they would have tried all other alternative methods that impact on one's right to freedom of expression and freedom of communication and receiving information as little as possible. As we are now living in a space where at least our courts are more sensitive and have a greater appreciation and respect for our constitutional rights. And because of the NIDS decision and the hoops they were forced to go through, the government knows that if it is they're contemplating any sort of legislative solution that in any way restricts our right, they would have to show the court that when we tried our educational campaign, it did not work. Mm-hmm. When we set up alternative publishing entities on social media, on the TikToks, and we tried all that we can do, it did not work. That's the only time you can credibly go before a constitutional court and have any law that seeks to restrict our rights stand up.
So your recommendation then, Mr. Cameron, is perhaps this is something for us to look at, especially in the age of AI. But let's see how we can strengthen some of the non-legislative means first.
That is a role that we have to play as civil society as well, because we are all in this together. We agree with the administration. I think all parties agree that this is a threat to our democracy, misinformation and disinformation. So not only do we have a role to hold the government accountable and ensure they don't overreach, let us use our areas of influence. Let us use these sort of platforms and educate the public, because we want to be protected.
Yes. And may I say, Jade, JFJ has been the brunt of certain statements, even from government ministers. And yes, we have, myself personally. And,
if I may, if
yes.
you're not getting any blowback, you're not doing your job.
Absolutely. We're not afraid of it. But what I would caution those in leadership across both sides of the aisle is that they should lead by example. Be careful in the utterances that we make. And let us sit at the table, civil society, the Jamaica Bar Association, and both sides of the aisle and figure out how we can create an enabling environment where people are a little bit more cautious with their words and a little bit more temperament in what they say. And then when we have people more civic-minded, then when you see nonsense, you hiss your teeth and move on and block that person right away. And I think, Mr. Cameron, I would also suggest maybe another day we could just go through the defamation provision for some people, because they think that they can just come online and say anything about people and get away with it.
Yeah, and that is a low-hanging fruit that we cannot take for granted. It is very powerful, very effective. We have to use it. But again, I don't want us to focus simply on utterances of persons.
Yes.
When you look on how social media can be manipulated, when you look at how persons' opinions, by just profiling you, how an individual can be manipulated as a result of profiling, those are the unseen and hidden forces of manipulation that we must be mindful of, that we have seen governments topple as a result of that sort of scenario.
Thank you.
Close our eyes to it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cameron. We appreciate you being here, and you take care. We take the break.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Tune in to Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Stay ahead of the curve with our cutting-edge reporting and accurate breaking news coverage.
We're having an earthquake. Oh, God.
Hear it here first on Nationwide 90 FM.
Is that really Cliffview starting?
Tune in, turn up the volume, and listen. We bring a mix of news, entertainment, and sports to your lives.
Nationwide 90 FM's live and continuous coverage of the World Championships in Budapest, Hungary.
News and discussions week mornings.
Coming up in the news at 6 for this morning.
Entertainment in the afternoons, then news again in the evenings.
Nationwide news at this hour. Fired.
Also, tune in to the entertainment and sports shows in the nights and on the weekends.
It is Boy Things After Dark right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
Everything is news, from current affairs and entertainment to sports, business, and other categories.
Nationwide 90 FM. This is Benjamin. Give it to them. Zaga, Zen.
From every whisper to every commotion.
That's rubbish. The KSAMC cannot investigate itself.
Was Cliffview really talking like that?
Every news story unfolds here first at Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Every sound is a story, and every story we share is news. On July 3 and 4, Privacy and Legal Management Consultants Limited will show you how to take control of your data with top-notch privatization solutions offered at their Prioritizing Privacy Conference. This conference is dedicated to informing the public about the latest innovations and best practices in data privacy. CliffViews Online will broadcast live from the conference on July 3 and 4 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Tune in for insightful discussions with speakers from Trinidad, Barbados, the United Kingdom, and Jamaica, and explore the future of data protection. You don't want to miss this. That's a live broadcast of the Prioritizing Privacy Conference on July 3 and 4 during CliffViews Online, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by Privacy and Legal Management Consultants.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Justice. We were discussing the matter earlier of fake news. And I think I can say that JFJ agrees that there is a challenge, but we disagree right now with a legislative solution to the challenge, because I think we're going to be hard-pressed in balancing one particular issue with a fundamental right in our Constitution, which is freedom of expression. But I also think that people who are online have to be a little bit more cognizant of their responsibility. People who are reading and watching certain YouTube channels, paying attention to TikTok, there needs to be greater levels of discernment in what you read, right? That has to be important. So when you see nonsense, you can identify nonsense right away because you know better. You know the systems of government. You tune in to PBC every Tuesday. You know, that is my statement, where we can keep abreast with what is happening in Parliament. We tune in to watch the sitting of the Senate as well. Because when we hear things for ourselves, when we read for ourselves, then we can say, no, nobody said that.
Agreed. And I think we have to also consider, I read a study about how Singapore's implementation of their legislation has gone. And, as Mr. Cameron said, we don't ever want to be looking at Singapore as as our legislative example. But even having identified similarly to us that this was an issue that needed to be seriously addressed to ensure public trust in the government and its processes, and that's not just the government in charge but also the opposition. The researcher made the point to say that public trust does not just lie in management of possible falsehoods and misinformation, but also in the government's willingness to bring the public into policy making. And I think that is a poignant issue here, where people consistently make their recommendations in the correct forum, joint select committees or however, what have you. And where those even have great public support, they are ignored. I think those things have greater effect on public trust at this time, and should be a greater focus of ours in terms of engendering the public to feel as though they're involved in the processes that we go through.
Yes. And to put it in simple language, everybody, pay attention to what the government is doing. Read, watch news, so we know what is happening in the country. To shift gears a little bit, Jade, for those who are not aware, Jamaicans for Justice, we have been watching proceedings on behalf of the family of deceased Mario Dean. Now, just to bring your memory to an issue, 31-year-old Mario Dean was brutally beaten while in police custody. The injuries that he had sustained left him brain dead, and 3 days later, on August 6, 2014, he died. Now, the matter has been before the courts for almost a decade. And as Mario Dean's mother, Miss Fraser, said to the Jamaica Gleaner, 10 years is a long time to suffer pain. I want to just put some things in context. And we won't speak much about the matter because we're still strategizing our next steps with the family. But the matter, after being delayed for close to 10 times before, Jade, last year,
yes,
it was rescheduled in the St. James Circuit Court. On April 15th, when we went to court with the family, it was revealed that 500 individuals were summoned for jury duty, with 23 responding, but only 14 individuals appearing before the court. That is not enough to have a trial commence. So you need enough persons where both sides, the defendant can challenge and the attorney on the other side can challenge. So 14 would not have been enough. Justice Bertram Morrison, the presiding judge who heard the matter, said, "Listen to me, man. We need to do better." And he urged the director of prosecution, the office, to reach out to the police in the area and see what else could be done. JFJ met with the former director of public prosecution, Miss Llewellyn, and efforts were made to see how many more people they could get to turn up for jury duty. We wrote to the police in that area as well. Nevertheless, on June 10th, the matter again could not commence because only 5 additional jurors were served, with only 2 appearing. But what is instructive here is that the list was prepared, listeners, on May 28th, when the trial date was set for June 10th. That's less than 2 weeks before the trial date. The matter again could not move forward. Fast forward to Monday, June 24th, that's last week. Only 3 additional persons were served, none of whom appeared before the courts. The matter has been rescheduled to November 18th, 2024, and the 10-year mark would have been met by then. Justice delayed is justice denied. And we outlined those dates for the listeners to put in context that notwithstanding this debate about whether we should have jury trials or judge-only trials, the accused decided that they want to have a jury.
As is their right.
As is their right. But what is instructive, the Jury Act says that 21 days at least must be met to have a jury served. 21 days.
Yes.
And each time we hear the period within which the trial date was established and the jury or the juror was served, it's less than the 3-week period. So in other words, it's very clear that the provisions of the Jury Act is not being adhered to. Why is that important? You can't enforce the provisions if you don't turn up if the 21 days was not met. So the matter of jury management or people being served to turn up for jury duty is not only because people may not be interested. The provisions in the law is not being adhered to, so you can't even enforce it. So here is Mario Dean's mother, who is suffering mentally, grieving over and over and over again, because those who should be adhering to the law in ensuring that those provisions are met are not doing so. I want us to think on these things when we ask ourselves the question, are we being served in a way that is just and fair for people who are most vulnerable? Like Mario Dean, 31 years old, died in police custody. And one would think that there is greater impetus on the state to say that we are involved in a matter and therefore greater accountability is needed. We need to think and demand a little bit more from the state and the authorities to ensure that all of us can get the justice that we deserve in a speedy way. Yeah?
Absolutely.
All right, over to you, Jade, with the trivia.
Yes, so we did get a trivia winner. The response to our trivia question, well, the trivia question was, which piece of legislation abolished criminal libel in Jamaica? And criminal libel is essentially where you would have been criminally prosecuted for making a false statement about another person and that affected their reputation. Yes. Now, the act
which is different from the civil.
Yes, it is separate from the civil. So the act that would have repealed that section is the Defamation Act, which we put in place in 2013,
following a commission that was convened by former Prime Minister Bruce Golding. And just to let you know that Marcus Garvey, our first national hero, was found guilty of seditious libel and was imprisoned for 6 months before he went to the appeal courts and the matter was thrown out. 6 months Marcus Garvey Garvey, for preaching black nationalism, for telling us that we should have black pride, for preaching reparation, for preaching labor laws. Marcus Garvey was sentenced to 6 months seditious libel.
Well, you'll find that libel tends to follow the thought of the day.
Yeah.
But we do have a winner. It's Laboratory Nakai. I'm not exactly sure. I believe this is a username. But we will reach out to you via your... Okay, yes. So our producer will reach out to you and you will receive your credit.
All right, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.
Yes.
I think you're going to be joined by Honeybee and Kareem shortly. Oh, DJ Jerome will be taking you with some lovely music, yeah? So have a good day.
Jamaicans, by justice, the people's champion. Justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
JP said name is banana chips. 20% more chips in the banana left them brown. The time by JP said Mary's banana chips is.
Caribbean Airlines Reggae Sumfest and Appleton Estate presents Jamaica Rum Festival Blitz.
On Thursday, July 18th, Catherine Hall Stadium, Montego Bay. Gates open at 1 p.m. Enjoy rum seminar, rum tastings, and Beanie Man performing as Moses Davis. Music by Walshy Fire of Major Lazo, Bloodline Franco, Rush One Road Marshall, and DJ Asha. Tickets are available at reggaesumfest.com.
Sponsored by Magnum, Ray Nephew, Appleton Estate, Jamaica Tourist Board, H&L Rapid True Value.
Must be 18 years and older to drink. Drink responsibly.
Attention all data protection enthusiasts. Action Matters is hosted by Chuck Cameron, founder of Design Privacy, your trusted partner in data protection. Don't miss out. That's every Tuesday morning at 8:20 and every Thursday at 8:25 a.m. Stay protected, stay informed with Nationwide 90 FM and Design Privacy.
Catch the E-Zone with me, the Stinger Honeybee, alongside
Kareem Boy Ting.
as we turn up the heat
In the street. New show.
New vibes.
Same us.
Same us.
Monday to Friday, 3 to 5 p.m.
Right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
We'll bring you entertainment news.
We'll take away your Monday blues.
You don't want to miss a week with us.
We'll talk health.
Well,
jump into the mix.
Or the hot seat.
Don't miss the brain buster.
Or the crazy giveaways.
I mean, is this planet Earth?
Is it?
I don't know. Let me check. Either way, it's got a buzz.
And a bugger thing.
Ow.
JP said name is banana chips. 20% more chips in the banana left them brown. The time by JP said Mary's banana chips is
3 minutes after 2.
Fosrich Company Limited.
Oh, every time I pay the rent, it feel like the money could have been better spent. I want something for my own. I want to turn the key in my own home. They make it so convenient when you contact the NHD. No matter your home ownership goal, you can get a loan easily. If owning a home is what you want to do, NHD is here for you. Delivering more. Delivering more.
I stay locked to the Olympics because, of course, I'm Jamaican. What you mean?
Me, I have to tune into the Olympics, man. Because I'm always busy, but what? I have to know when Sherika Jackson beat Shakari.
Brother, I have to have every notification for the Olympics. I want to hear every run.
Now
Sharika Jackson coming
every jump.
Oh, that is absolutely huge of Wade Pinkham.
Every fling, live.
So, take us then.
Nothing can miss me.
We're always on the move.
So while we're driving, run, Elaine, run.
Jogging. Yes. Run, Watson, win again.
Watson is now a world champion.
Or even at work.
Quick, the race has started.
We can't miss a beat because we keep it locked
to the only station
for the Paris Olympics.
Nationwide.
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 90 FM.
Nationwide 90.1, 90.3, 90.5, 90.7 and 90.9, and on YouTube at Nationwide 90 FM Live. Nationwide, the new revolution in media.
My name is Kedrin Campbell. I come from the Appleton Basic School. My favorite Olympic